J-Tech Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Bastek and Mike Jacobs.
And welcome back, week number 4 of America's... number 4, man, of America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. I am Tom Bastek. Alongside of me, as always.
Hi, I'm Mike Jacobs.
Well, the best part about being in quarantine is I don't count my weeks that I'm in quarantine by quarantine. I count my weeks by doing another edition of the podcast.
There you go. I mean, it's what we're revolving our weeks around these days.
Yeah, man, and we've got a really great game, and we'll talk more about that right after the news. Mike, you want to get right into it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring in Christian.
Light up your cigarette, crack open a beer, put the kiddos to bed. From chaos around the world to carnage in your very own front yard, it's time for the news.
Oh, Christian, what news have ye for us this week?
We have some news, which is excellent for my segment because my segment depends on us having news. So, ABC, Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, just announced recently that they are coming back for season 2. The show started on ABC about 20 years ago, believe it or not. Everyone remembers the classic with Regis. They did some celebrity editions, sort of ran the show into the ground for a while, canceled in 2002. The syndicated version just got canceled a year ago. That ran for 17 years. But now this new version, again, with Jimmy Kimmel hosting, coming back for a second season. No premiere date yet. But so far, it's been a great success. And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and on Facebook talking about the show. And that's a pretty good, I think, indicator of how popular the show is. And speaking of popular quiz shows, Jeopardy, as of the 18th of May, started airing new episodes. They have a month of those. They were all taped before the pandemic broke out. I know that they did try to put a week of shows together without an audience. And I think they realized how awkward that was. So the solution was to suspend production for a while. But again, these shows were taped before all of that. Alex Trebek still hosting, still in okay health, seems to be holding up just fine, even in light of his pancreatic cancer diagnosis. And we, of course, wish him the best.
Absolutely, we do. Do you know, this may be a bit grim, but in Tom's vein of talking about dead people.
Yes, dead people!
Do we know if there are plans after he passes for maybe a potential successor?
I'm sure there are plans. I know a couple of years ago when the Sony email leak happened, 2 of the people who were floated around, one was Anderson Cooper, which I think would be great.
Wow.
And another one, I forget this guy's name, but I don't think there was much of a discussion. Anderson Cooper seems to be the front runner for that particular job, although he's not my personal pick, which would be LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow. I think that would be a genius choice.
As a Star Trek fan, you just my heart just went pitter patter when you said LeVar Burton. I was so excited for that. I would handle either one of them without any kind of a problem.
I was gonna say, I think you could give me an entire day to come up with a list of people to replace Alex Trebek, and both of those suggestions beat anything I would come up with in that entire day.
Christian, what do you got for us on this week in game show history?
Well, this week in game show history, an important birth date, for several reasons. May 22nd, 1910, the birth of Johnny Olson, one of the most famous and prolific game show announcers. Oh my God, how many shows did he announce? To Tell the Truth, What's My Line, The Price is Right, Match Game, Beat the Clock, Card Sharks, Family Feud.
Hang on, Christian, hang on. So you're telling me Johnny Olson, like the Tell Them What They've Won Johnny Olson, his birthday is May 22nd?
His birthday is May 22.
That is my birthday. I share a birthday with Johnny Olson.
What?
We're never going to hear the end of this. You know that. Christian,
Holy crap.
You should have lied to him and just said it was the 23rd.
This is amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, Christian, one last thing before we let you go. Featured game show of the week this week is The Pyramid. Your thoughts?
Pyramid, one of my favorite shows of all time. I am really good at Pyramid. As a matter of fact, my wife and I do a lot of thrift shopping. We found a copy of the $100,000 Pyramid computer game. It came out in 2001. I don't even think a version of the show was on at this point. A really rare game, really fun game if you ever get a chance to find a copy on eBay. But definitely just one of the most interactive shows, one of the game shows that's just easiest to play along with, and it's so exciting. In terms of bonus rounds, it doesn't get more exciting than that. That is the archetype for exciting bonus rounds in game shows.
All right, awesome. Why don't you give us a little plug for Buzzer Blog?
Of course, buzzerblog.com, the #1 game show website on the internet. Whether you're an industry expert, whether you're just a casual fan, or whether you're a diehard game show nerd like the three of us, Buzzerblog is the place to come for information regarding game shows, reality shows, anything unscripted. But of course, game shows are a specialty, and you're talking to the resident historian of buzzerblog.com. That is buzzerblog.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Christian. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Tom, I'm so excited to dive into today's featured game. We're talking The Pyramid, which personally is maybe the show I would like to be on the most, just because I think I would do the best at it.
Well, I mean, that's because it's the easiest show of all time.
Well, okay, you may have a point there.
It's not true. That's not true, by the way. I mean, I don't think there's really anything easier than like doing a pricing game and dropping a Plinko chip.
I suppose that's true. That's a little more chance-based. And you do have to, like, A, be on top of it, which I think is difficult when there's, like, an audience and lights and all that kind of stuff. But B, you, like, have to think on the same wavelength as a complete stranger. So, you know, there's skill involved for sure.
Oh, I definitely agree. All right, well, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to dive right into the gameplay of what is now known out there in the world as the $76 million pyramid.
$4,900 million pyramid.
What is it actually up to now?
100,000.
Well, I think it started at 10, so we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Mike, tell everybody what they've been listening to.
Oh, it's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won.
Hey gang, it's Mike and Tom from America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won, and we want to talk to you a little bit today about how we got started with Anchor.fm.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting with so many podcasts out there, it's not as easy to get started as you might think, and it was a pretty daunting task at first, but during my research, I came across Anchor.fm, and boy, I tell you, it seems like the perfect solution for getting started.
You said it best, Mike. They had a way to grow the podcast. We had the opportunity to put our podcast out there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the platforms, and then make money from the beginning with minimum listenership and then grow.
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect platform to get everything done. They've got all the tools to edit and publish and all that kind of stuff right there, straight from your phone even. If you don't even have a computer, you can do it. And we can start small, and we'll have features to help us every step of the way.
If you're looking to get things started on your own podcast, just download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get things started. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's our featured game on America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. We are doing the pyramid today, Mike.
The pyramid. There are 7 different iterations of the pyramid, and they all have different numbers throughout the years. But the pyramid refers to the blanket term, I suppose, for the series as a whole.
You know, I'm a little upset that they didn't stop at 6 because 6 makes a perfect pyramid. 7.
That's true.
You know, now that we're going to have to get 3 more iterations
right?
of it.
Make a full 10. Yep,
Absolutely.
Well, the thing is it's kind of tough to dive too much into the gameplay because it has changed so many times over those various 7 shows. So we'll mostly talk about how it's played now in sort of general terms of how it goes. So each show, contestants are brought on and paired with a celebrity. Then they play through the main round where they pick a category like I'm all wet is stuff about water. And they have time to name. Basically, they get pitched clues about what these items are in this category. So it could either go that the contestant is receiving the clues from the celebrity or giving them to the celebrity. But either way, the idea is, you know, in this category of water, something is, you know, beach ball. So they have to get the other person to say beach ball without saying beach ball. Oh, this is a thing you bring to the ocean and throw around. You can't say beach because it's in anyways. You're not allowed to say any of the terms in the actual answer. And that applies as well to different versions of the word. For example, if the word was golden, you couldn't say gilded because it's basically the same thing.
Oh, because it's from the same thing. Yeah, I get
Right,
that.
right.
I get that.
Exactly. So over the course of this main round, like we said, you accrue points. It's 1 point per correct item that you name within that category. And then whoever got the most points over the course of that round would go to the winner's circle. And in the winner's circle, basically they just reverse the way it works. This time the celebrity is giving you items that are in the category, and you have to figure out what the category is.
Cool.
Yeah, and then basically you just repeat that again for the second half of the show. The idea is that to win the full amount, you have to get to and win the winner's circle twice.
Now, if you only won one time, you could still take just the 5,000 home and not the 10,000, right?
Right. Well, and the values vary over the course of the different shows. But yes, you
Sure.
get a portion of the winnings in the first winner's circle, and then the full value in the second.
And this is what we were talking about, where there's 6 categories in the winner's circle right now.
Yes.
And originally it was 10. The funny thing is that this is just a great story. Is the gentleman who started Bob Stewart was the one who pitched the production. He basically had 10 categories in that winner's circle and had a bunch of his friends come over and play the game literally on set the day before it was about to start filming. And nobody could finish the winner's circle.
Well, yeah, because you only get 60 seconds, right?
Correct.
That's
So
a category
imagine
every 6 seconds. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Although I believe the record right now for 6 categories is 27 seconds. But
Oh, wow.
needless to say, Bob Stewart freaked out and was like, "What are we going to do?" And they took some plywood and covered up the bottom row.
They didn't even get rid of it. They just stuck a thing over it.
Just for the first season, they just covered it up and said, "We're only going to do 6 categories just to make it a little bit easier." And when we
Nice.
get to history, we'll also talk a little bit about how easy it truly was.
Indeed.
So tell me about that bonus.
Yeah, so there was, again, it varies over the years, but there's always been some kind of bonus involved. On the show now, it's if you get all 7 of the items in a category, I think they toss you an extra $500. At one point, it was the 7-11 bonus, where it was hidden behind a category, and if you got all 7, you got an $1,100 bonus. So again, the idea was basically if you could run a category, you'd get some manner of prize.
Cool.
At one point, what I thought the most interesting way of doing it was that they it was hidden behind a category, and the categories are always kind of vague and esoteric, and then the host would explain what it means before they go into the round. For these bonus ones, they did not explain what it means, so you're basically just going into it somewhat blind. You have to figure out what the common thread between all the answers is. But if you got that one right, there was some sort of bonus prize, like a stereo or a trip or something along those lines.
Cool. There's a great story too about the contestants that were originally on the show when it first started. And they talked about how they were getting a lot of out-of-work actors that were auditioning, because if you won $10,000, that could carry you for a really long time.
Sure.
I think in today's day and age, money-wise, it's about like $40,000. But so a lot of people before they became famous were auditioning for it. And the people who were doing the auditioning process, Mike, literally would screen out to make sure that they didn't have too many like out-of-work actors on the show.
You got to get some real people in there.
Well, to the point where the actors started coaching other actors on how to audition so that they didn't get screened out.
Nice.
Perfect, for instance, that is somebody who did actually make it through and get on the show is David Graff. God rest his soul, and he passed away a while ago. He was Tackleberry on the Police Academy series.
Oh, man, I love those Police Academy movies.
Yeah, I just love David Graff, too. He was amazing. But he actually was on the show in 79 and then came back and played again in 85. But in 85, he was on the celebrity side.
Ah, very nice. Very nice.
Pretty cool.
Also, true to form, Tom, I did not know he had passed, but way to bring up dead people again.
All right. So prizes, mystery categories. What else do we have gameplay-wise?
Well, so again, a varying factor, but the way that the returning champions or tournaments worked, it was various things. And to be honest with you, I don't actually know how this works right now. I believe it is a 5-show limit, if I recall correctly. But yeah, basically you can come back through the various iterations, depending on, if you get beat, then you don't come back, obviously. But there was usually either a money or a time limit that you could come back. And then after a while, I think starting with the $50,000 iteration of the show, they started naming like players of the week, and then they would bring them back for like a tournament at the end of the season, or I don't know if it was specifically at the end of the season, but yeah, they would run a tournament.
I also remember something along the lines of like you would have sometimes the show would open up in the winner's circle where they would have people like competing from a previous show or something, like whether they were finishing it or they were people coming back as an existing champion.
Well, and I know that there were times when there would be a tie, and then they had a tiebreaker of like basically whoever did it fastest. But sometimes even that tied, and I think when that happened, they brought them both back the next show. And I'm sure if that happened, they didn't have enough time to finish a third tiebreaker basically on the show, so they probably taped it at the beginning of the next show.
So that could be what I saw. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not sure, but yeah.
And
makes
so
sense.
what's interesting, and this may actually put a little context into this that I couldn't really figure out, but now the show runs for an hour and goes through 2 full pairs of rounds or whatever, so 4 rounds total over the course of the whole thing. And they film an intro and a closing to both ones, so that they can put the show in either order that they want to. And I guess that's the idea, is that if there is a holdover, they can do it in one order, and then it flows seamlessly. And then if there's not, they can mix it up if they want to. I don't know. I don't understand why they would want to, but that's a thing they do now.
Cool. All right, let's take a quick break, and we come back, we'll talk about history of the pyramid. You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. All right, and welcome back. It is episode number 4. We are doing the pyramid on America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. I'm Tom Bastek.
I'm Mike Jacobs.
And Mike, I got a great story for you now. So like, listen to this. You know how like the winner's circle is by far like the most popular part of the game, obviously.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And you know that for a long period of time, they would always give you the at-home version of whatever game show you were on to take home with you.
Sure.
And the pyramid, of course, for like years and years and years, gave away the home board game version of the pyramid.
Right.
So the interesting thing is that there was one part that was purposely left out of the board game version of the show, and that's the winner's circle.
Huh.
The reason being is they didn't want people practicing using the board game.
I guess. How is it practicing? You're not going to know what categories you're going to get on the show.
I don't know. That's the hilarious part about it, is they literally said, yeah, we don't want potential players to be able to practice using the board game.
What a weird thought process.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're still practicing by playing the other round. You're just practicing. I mean, whatever. Man,
I know.
People make some weird decisions.
Yeah, they do. All right, let's talk about history of the game.
Yeah, well, so like you said earlier, it initially started as a pitch, as an earlier show. I forgot what'd you say the name of it was?
Oh, it was called, Christian gave it to us. It was called Cash on the Line.
Cash on the Line, yeah. I don't know much about that one, but it began in March 1973. That's when it was officially the pyramid. At that point, $10,000 pyramid. And that's when Dick Clark was the host, which, if you ask me, Dick Clark is the iconic host of this show.
Oh, absolutely. Two quick things. One, from Christian's photo, which, by the way, we'll have on Facebook and the website. He said it's from 67.
Oh, wow.
And from what I've read online, Bob, when he pushed out the original pitch of this, he pitched it to Mark Goodson, the Goodson-Todson production company.
Sure.
And apparently they weren't interested in it. So I guess he just went on his own. So this could be his first.
I think it's his first show. That totally makes sense.
Cool. Okay. Well, then that all lines up. I just would love to know what happened, because that photo that you'll see from Christian has got a full sound stage in it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a full-on production for sure.
And so even if they just built that and then it didn't go, wow, for 7 years, 8 years, crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead. So Dick Clark, he is the epitome. By the way, what's his middle name?
What is Dick Clark's middle name?
Yeah, question
Washington.
for you. Oh, you're close. It's
Really?
W.
Oh, really?
It's Wagstaff.
Wow. That's a great name.
It's got to be a family name, I figure.
I'm sure
I've not
it is, yeah.
Googled that, but I mean, you were close with Washington. That's a great guess.
So real quick before we go on, during this run, there was also a nighttime version of the show that ran in 79. And that was hosted by our Dean of Game Show host, Mr. Bill Cullen, who we've spoke of several times now.
Interesting. Oh, and Christian had another little tidbit when we were talking news. He said that Bill was actually the only person that came on the show, walked in from the right side as opposed to the left, because of the fact that he had a limp and from his polio,
Right.
and you couldn't see it if he was in that way.
Wow. I mean, so we talked about this before, how he had polio and I guess hit it really well because, I couldn't tell. But I guess maybe he just knew how to work it so that it wasn't visible.
God bless the man.
Good for him. So anyways, this version ran for a little bit. And in fact, it was incredibly popular during this time. So much so that even being delayed and preempted by the Watergate scandal at the time, didn't hurt it at all. Its ratings stayed strong, but then Jeopardy came along, and in 74, I guess, and the ratings took a slight bit hit, and CBS was just like, nope, all right, we're done, and they just dropped it at the drop of a hat. It's bizarre.
Interesting. I have not found what the reason is online, but I could tell you a couple of things. One, it may have been because it was too easy.
Yeah, I did read that they initially were concerned that it was rigged and that there was some funny business going on with it.
Yeah, so what happened was Fred Silverman was the president of CBS at the time, and he basically was concerned that 2 out of 2 people in the first week won $10,000, and he was like, wait a second, is this thing rigged? And they were thinking about canceling it, and they found out, okay, no, it's not rigged, but just 2 people got lucky. And interestingly, and unbeknownst to Silverman, later on in that week, Rob Reiner went to Dick Clark and said, I'll be surprised if this thing lasts 13 weeks because it's so easy. And so he was kind of right.
So I guess they were just predicting it was just going to hemorrhage money and not be worth keeping around.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you get a game that's too easy, that's going to cost everybody money. You're getting rid of that thing.
Yeah, I guess so. But I tell you what, ABC saw a big opportunity there, and they swept right in. And it's interesting that it was less than a year and a half between when it first started in 73 and when it started on ABC in 74. It was March of 73 when it first started. By May of 74, it was already on ABC. So they were obviously just ready to go and bring Dick Clark along, which was probably because was American Bandstand was on ABC, right?
Yeah, it sure was. Here's a very funny thing. Okay, so Dick Clark's known for American Bandstand, rock and roll, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's where basically New Year's Rockin' Eve comes from,
sure.
Because of his bandstand thing. But here's what's funny. He's on CBS. All right, so he does Bandstand on ABC. He's on CBS with Pyramid. Pyramid gets dumped. ABC, of course, has a relationship with him, pulls it right back to ABC. It says, no, we'll do Pyramid over here with Dick Clark. New Year's Rockin' Eve is on NBC.
Oh.
A network he's never been on yet, but they're the ones that decide to come up with the thing and go. Now, in today's day and age, you'd never have somebody be able to do their game show on ABC and also have a contract with NBC to do New Year's Rockin' Eve.
Well, and especially with New Year's Rockin' Eve being so obviously inspired by the American Bandstand, to have almost a spin-off show on another network is just
if you're ABC, how do you let that happen?
Yeah, I guess that just they didn't think about things like that back then, and I'd be willing to bet that at some point when people make shows, they would reference this as here's why we can't do this anymore or something. I don't know, but
interesting. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyways, so 74, like I said, is when it moved over to ABC. Ran there for about 6 years, and in 76 is when it upped to $20,000 Pyramid. That again, like I said, that ran for 6 years. In 1980, it was canceled. And then picked up again pretty quickly, 82, but this time it goes back to CBS. So CBS obviously realized they dropped the ball
Mistake
initially.
made. Yeah.
And so this version ran technically till 91, but there were some breaks in between, and this is when it really goes through the most changes. So like I say, 82 is when it started back up, and they upped it to 25,000. And then it jumped to 50, then 75, and through those 3 iterations, that lasted till 87. Then it took a break for a while, got 13 more weeks in 88. But then Ray Combs' Family Feud came along, and they just knocked it off and put him in there. And that was the run where it went up to $100,000, where it's stayed ever since. And then it came back again for another short run hosted by John Davidson, who I don't know much about. I didn't have time to dive into his career. But
okay, he is the epitome of game show hosts for me growing up, because one of my favorite game shows was Hollywood Squares, and he was the host of Hollywood Squares.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember him doing anything but Hollywood Squares, but he is like the game show host that I used to look at and go, and that's John Davidson doing Hollywood Squares. Like, to
There
me,
you go.
Shadow Stevens will always be the announcer for Hollywood Squares, even though he did other things.
Sure.
To me, John Davidson will always be the host of Hollywood Squares.
Right on. Yeah, I recognized him in his photos, but yeah, Hollywood Squares is definitely where I know him from. So then, yeah, that one ended in 91, and then I guess this was probably the biggest break because it didn't come back until 2002, 11 years later. It ran for a couple of years, hosted by Donny Osmond, which I had forgotten even existed until I started doing the research for this. I was like, oh my god, I remember seeing Donny Osmond host this show.
What a throwback.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, like I said, that ran for 2 years, so that ended in like 04. And then we had another big break until 2012 when it got picked up once again, and that's what's currently running now with Michael Strahan hosting. And they intend to keep going with I believe it is the 4th season now, but of course delayed for obvious reasons. But it's renewed. It's going to be coming back eventually.
I have to tell you, I'm liking a lot more of what they're doing, and ABC's the one really championing this.
Yeah.
Is the short run of 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 weeks, and then that's it for the year.
Right. Almost make it like seasonal as opposed to just running all the time.
Yeah, because like you've got Jeopardy all the time, you've got Wheel of Fortune all the time.
Yeah.
Now you've got Who Wants to Be a Millionaire all the time. And then there's all the other ones that are kind of thrown in, like The Big Board and Ellen's Game of Games. And,
Right.
you know, to me, I really like the idea of the quick hit, 12, 14 weeks at the most. Boom, you're out of there.
Yep. I agree for sure. And just quick correction, it's season 5 that's delayed, not 4.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
know.
I'm going to thank you, Captain Technicality. I appreciate you being so on it.
I just got to tie up the loose ends, Tom.
Hey, man, that's fine. And by the way, we do have people that tie up loose ends for us. We want to say thanks to everybody who does drop us a line every once in a while and says,
yeah, absolutely. I think we've gotten a couple already. I think the one I remember was someone pointed out that what's his name from Holy Moly has not been doing Monday Night Football for some time. But I didn't know he did Monday Night Football to begin with. So,
yeah,
what do I know?
It's fun. Yeah, I hear something every once in a while. Like we'll get feedback saying, "Oh, did you know this or did you know that?" Dude, we love all that. So please email. Do whatever you want to get in touch with us. Hit us up with a comment through the website. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So one more thing I did want to touch on during the history.
Okay.
I guess it had to have been, I didn't get the exact years when all these happened, but I guess it had to be in those larger breaks, after the 90s and those 2000s breaks. But there were several times when they tried to bring it back and it never got picked up. And they got some pretty decent suggestions or attempts at hosts during these runs. One was Mark Wahlberg. I think that was probably the biggest celebrity name. Chuck Woolery they tried to bring back. He's always been one of my favorite hosts.
Sure.
Andy Richter was 2 different times on 2 different networks. One of them was TBS, and I'm not sure which one the other one was, but Andy Richter was brought up twice. Dean Cain, classic Superman. And a comedian by the name of Bill Dwyer was tapped to do a like rock and roll themed one. And there's not really much to know about Bill Dwyer except that I share a movie credit with him. a made-for-TV movie called Reanimated.
Did you work on it? Did you star in it?
No, I worked on it. I did post-production, compositing, special effect kind of stuff.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's great. Here, I thought I could see your mug on television.
No, well, you can, but not in that movie.
Great. All right, let's get our ratings in real quick and talk quickly about next week.
Yeah, sure thing. Ratings. Let's do what categories? Out of 5 categories?
I mean, you got to, how many categories would you give it? I mean, what else could you give it for this, except for denominations?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I like that. Well, as far as the way I'm going to rate it, man, I'm real torn here. I'm gonna say it lands at a 4 out of 5 denominations. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to play along with. I love watching it. Like I said earlier, it's the show I would most like to be on. But it is easy. Easy is not the right word, but I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't feel as like it doesn't have that Jeopardy challenge or Wheel of Fortune challenge of like you have to be really good at this to win. I think, and maybe that's almost a bonus that I think, like you mentioned earlier, that it's accessible to more people and it could have a wider appeal. So to me, that's kind of a plus and a minus. So again, I'm landing at a solid 4.
I'm going to give it 3.75 only because I think that there's a bunch of others that I would rate it a 4 and above, and this one doesn't come in that thing for me. I wasn't the biggest fan of Pyramid back in the day, but I do like the idea of just random people off the streets actually get to sit with a celebrity and do it. I also, so I think it's cool for the audience and it's cool for the contestants. I also think some of the celebrities are just awful, and that kind of makes it fun sometimes. But I'm going to go 3.75 denominations for this for today on that one. All right, well, Mike, that's all we have time for today.
All right, Tom. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. Thanks to Christian for joining us live for the news this week.
Tune in again next time when we'll bring you the latest and greatest in the world of game shows, as well as a brand new featured show, too.
Remember, you can always catch us online at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and of course, tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com.
Subscribe, share, like, and drop a review if you like what you heard.
And if you didn't, you have 30 seconds to name 7 reasons why.
Well, I thought you meant I did. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, Tom.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won, a JTech audio production, copyright 2020. No part of this podcast may be reproduced by anyone without the express written consent of the creators. For more information or to contact us, please go to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com.
All right, Tom, what'd you learn this week?
Well, you know what I learned? That I love everything about like the 70s on television and movies and stuff. I love the idea of, everything's being held together with duct tape and a paper clip. The fact that they covered over those signs with plywood for the whole first season, it stood there where they covered up the categories. That's fun for me.
I love it. I think I learned, I don't know that this is true, but it seems like it to me. What other game show has this many different names over the years and is still considered the same game show?
All right, I'll give you 6 game shows that you need to name in a minute.
Uh-oh.
Copyright 2020, a JTech audio production.